Okay, I am back with another Pokemon Generation review. So I did Generation 1, I did 1.5, which is Orange Islands, and I did Generation 2. Now I'm going to do Generation 3, Hoenn Generation. Kid from Pallet Town. Oh no, please don't know what's ahead. I don't know, I forgot the lyrics, but anyway, you guys know what I'm singing. If you guys has watched Pokemon Advance, that's what I'm going to be reviewing. So, Generation 3, where do I start? Generation 3 was a generation that changed a lot of things in the series that still continue to this day. For one thing, Generation 3 was the first generation to introduce um, a new female character. The idea of Ash, a female character in the anime, that's not Missy, a female traveling what do you call it? Companion, yeah, companion. Besides Misty, because Misty was with Ash for 5 seasons, from season 1 over to season 5. So Misty was in the generation. So Misty was with Ash, you know, Kanto, Orange Islands, and Johto. So it was time to see a new face, and May was the new face. She was in the Ruby and Sapphire games, so people was already kind of familiar with May, and May just changed the series as far as anime goes for forever. And then you also got double battles introduced in the generation. So instead of Pokemon just face each other 1-on-1, you got 2-on-2 battles, which is still used to this day. I mean, if you just go to a competitive to a metagame battle, you will see a lot of doubles as well as single battles. What else is introduced? Natures, EV. That's when natures started to become important. EV training started to become a thing during the generation as well. So I mean, so competitive battle was really starting to come to its own in this generation, even though this was before, the DS era. This was still, a pretty cool time to be a Pokemon fan. Hold on. It was a pretty cool time to be a Pokemon fan. So yes, I mean this generation, while it had a lot of flaws, which I might get into, but it still, held up as one of the the best, biggest, and the most monumental changes in a Pokemon franchise. Um, so let's get to the games. The games, Pokemon, Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald. Those were the main games. And then you also got introduced to a remake game, Leaf Green and Fire Red. So Pokemon, during this time period, going from the Game Boy Color to Game Boy Advance. Before Ruby and Sapphire came out, you was able to transfer your Pokemon from Generation 1 to Generation 2. So if you still have Red and Blue, you could transfer those Pokemon to Gold and Silver and Crystals from Red, Blue, and Yellow. But in this generation, they completely did away with all that, where you only use the Pokemon from Ruby and Sapphire, which turned a lot of people off from the series, which was one of the reasons why a lot of people got turned off from the series for a while, because a lot of people missed their old Pokemon, and plus, Ruby and Sapphire, you couldn't get a lot of Kanto and Johto Pokemon in the wild, besides like Geodude and Zubat. So you was mainly stuck with new Pokemon, and it hurt, and it hurt a lot of people. A lot of people who was huge Pokemon fans during the Game Boy and Game Boy Color days. A lot of them felt hurt because they couldn't keep their old Pokemon. So that was a one big con. It was fixed later on during the generation when Leaf Green and Fire Red came out. So you was able to transfer your Pokemon, the Kanto Pokemon from to Ruby and Sapphire. But then you had the Johto Pokemon, and the only way to get Johto Pokemon was to get Pokemon Coliseum and XD, on a GameCube, and if you didn't have a GameCube, a lot of people didn't have a GameCube because GameCube was a very, it was a very niche system. Only sold to the 22 million units, so a lot of people couldn't get. Hold on. All right, I'm back. So anyway, you got to get the GameCube games in order to get the Johto Pokemon, and you got to get the remakes of Red and Blue, which is Leaf Green and Fire Red, to get the Kanto games. So it was very tedious to catch them all. That's why hacking was like a big, it was pretty big in this generation because, even though we may hate hackers nowadays, but you gotta understand this was, this was during a time when, you didn't have the internet really. So a lot of people didn't have internet at the time. So, you had to, so like, a lot of people didn't have internet. So, you had to, so Pokemon was still very primitive at this time. You had to actually go out with your friends and trade Pokemon and stuff like that. You still had to, competitive battling was, still very a niche thing. And then you had and then link cables, was you didn't have the DS and the 3DS, you don't need did away with link cables, but with the Game Boy Advance you still needed link cables to trade. And then this was also a time when Pokemon series went down in popularity. Like it really went down. It was going downhill like towards the end of Generation 2, but when Generation 3 hit, it just really it sank like a lot. Ruby and Sapphire, sales I think it was like 6 and 7 million. And so it was like the least selling Pokemon games, one of the least selling Pokemon games, out. I mean it really plummet compared to red, blue, yellow, gold, and silver. So, this is time when Pokemon series is really trying to reinvent itself. It's trying to, get a new audience, who didn't grow up in the first two generations because, a lot of people was again when I say my generation two review, a lot of people towards the mid to late Johto was getting tired of Pokemon. Pokemon was losing its popularity amongst its older fan base, especially for those who was born like in the late 80s. A lot of them they were in like in high school at the time, so when Ruby and Sapphire came out, Pokemon just seemed like didn't seem as cool as it was, in 98, 99, as it was in 03, 04, 05. So like a lot of the first Gen 1ers crowd lost interest and so a lot of people, felt like, like Pokemon wasn't for them because of all the major changes that occurred in this time period. And with the anime, it was the same deal, as I mentioned earlier, May replaced Misty, which a lot of people loved Misty, but now looking back at it, May was, a perfect, replacement for Misty because, Misty, even though Ash was pretty experienced, he was pretty, established, at Johto. Misty was kind of just like a side character, she had little moments here and there. She, did the World Cup. She caught the Togepi egg. She had little moments with her sisters, but Misty was really doing much, in Johto. I mean, Master Quest. That was like the only season when I really felt like Misty was, you know, doing stuff. Besides just, beating up Ash for making stupid mistakes or, pulling Brock's ear when you flirt with a girl. So like after the Master Quest, Missy just left the series. I mean, she eventually came back in Advanced Challenge, but she was the first Poke Girl to she was the first Poke Girl Ash ever traveled with, and she was the only Poke Girl to stay for more than one region. So that's a fun fact right there. And also you had Max, who's May's little brother, which was not the unique thing about Generation 3 is that it was the first time, it was the only generation besides Generation 6 where the new traveler, where the new companion had a little sibling. In this case was Max, but like before, Well, Generation 4, Generation 5, you didn't have a younger sibling. You just had the new trainer. Whereas Generation 3, you had Max, and Generation 6, you had Bonnie. So that was another interesting thing. I kind of, a lot of people didn't like Max, but truth is, I kind of enjoy Max. Even though Max can be a little bit bratty at sometimes, I mean, it was still fun. I mean, like like one of the episodes that really, that really stood out to me when it came to Max was the Max Out episode when Max met another replacement. It was pretty funny. I mean, seen that episode. I was like, whoa, that's his twin. They like never met each other, never knew each other, but they look exactly alike. One just had blue hair, one had red hair. So, and plus, Max was like the same age I was. May was 10 when Pokemon Advance came out. Max was like around 7 or 8. I was 7 when Advance came out, so I could kind of relate to Max. Being the little kid and growing up with like older siblings and stuff like that. You want to do the big kid. You're tired of feeling like a little kid. Like I kind of relate to that. Because I had like a lot of older siblings. In my household, older cousins. Stuff like that, who were like in teenagers, young adults, and I felt kind of, like a little kid at the time. Now at 21, I'm like, dang, it felt like yesterday I was watching, I was like Max, and now I'm more like May, so it was pretty awesome. May was an awesome character. And just my overall experience with this generation. This was like the first generation. Well, Generation 2, even though I got Pokemon doing Generation 2, this is the first generation I got to see in its entirety. So, like, this generation really holds a special place in my heart. You know, I got to see, I remember when Ruby and Sapphire, I remember my cousin played Ruby Sapphire for the first time back in 2003. I was like, oh crap, this game is cool. It's for the Game Boy Advance. It was updated. I think he had Blaziken at the time. It was just so, it blew my mind. From going from the Game Boy Color to Game Boy Advance. To seeing May, from the TV show and in the video game was just so cool. It was just such a fun time to be a Pokemon fan, and plus, you know, um, Coliseum XD was just my childhood, like, bruh. So like, I really enjoyed this generation. Generation 3, while it did have its flaws for, taking out a lot of things that made Pokemon popular in the first place, it did pave the way for newer generations to come with Pokemon contests, with replacing a new female character every single region. Um, Ash went from being a noob to being kind of, a little bit more experienced, and now he's like a mentor. Um, so like yeah, it was a cool time it was too cool time to be a Pokemon fan. If you were like my age, I mean it was a cool time. If you were like a little bit older, you probably didn't like this generation as much because of all the major changes that occurred, and then you were like saying I'm too old for Pokemon. Well, for me, but if you were a Pokemon fan, like if you started doing like Johto and he didn't experience Generation 1, then you probably would appreciate the generation more. Whereas somebody who grew up with, the first generation probably would have hated this generation because, the fact that there's no Misty. But I say I enjoy this generation overall. It's definitely my favorite generation, with the anime and with the video games. So stay tuned to Generation 4. Signing out.